Welcome to Impact Media Presents. Good morning. It's good morning all across the country today. It's a Tuesday. Nice to see you on a Tuesday morning. This is new for us. As you know, we used to have our show on Saturday mornings when quarantine started April 18th. And this is our 22nd show since we launched April 18th. And it's really exciting because we are launching a new series in healthcare. So this is our first time actually focusing on healthcare. And I have some really, really special ladies who are joining me today to talk about birthing while Black. And I'd like to just go right into it this morning. We've got a lot of really good information to share for those of you who are interested in starting a family, as well as those of you who are interested in a career, in assisting ladies and families in having birth and having babies. So without delay, I'm going to introduce you to Celeste, who is a midwife. Angie, who is a midwife. Want to introduce you to Jennifer, who's a doula, and Miss Chandler, who is an RN and a doula. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so good to see you, ladies. I was a little nervous when I got the text the other day, like, well, we may have to be at a birth on Tuesday morning. We'll have to see. So what an exciting life you live. Tell us a little bit about that. And well, before we get into that, go ahead. Celeste, tell us how that is, kind of living day to day, not knowing when work happens and doesn't happen.
Well, yes, we do go on call when a woman goes into her 37th week gestation period, and then on call can be between 37 weeks and 42. So it's a good about 4 to 5 weeks that we could be on call waiting for a baby to come. So it's morning, noon, night, wee hours of the morning, all those times. So yeah.
And then Angie, how do you handle that when things happen outside of the norm? Because with the situation that you shared with me, like this was a little early. So
yeah, I think for me, it's unless everything and everyone knows, unless I'm at a birth, life goes on as normal. I usually, if a mom's brewing and contractions are starting, I try to get as much things done and cram it all in a little amount of time.
So Chandler and Jennifer, weigh in. How does it impact you when things happen very last minute?
Right. I think for me, being in school at the same time that I'm doing doula work, it's very important that I get everything done early in the month. So I have a calendar laid out for myself, and that's just kind of how I prioritize things. For me, school is always a priority, but when mom's in date, that is my priority. So I just have to make sure I find that balance. And it's pretty easy to find it. Once you get it down, it's like second nature.
Great. Jennifer?
Yeah, so I have 2 little kids and I actually homeschool too. So I just have to make sure childcare is in order ahead of time and my husband knows what's going on, whether he's working from home or at work. So he knows he needs to come home and take care of the kids or homeschool our oldest son.
Yeah, it's really commendable, that you make the because it's a huge sacrifice to do this work, especially trying to manage, your own family. So how have things been for you since quarantine and the pandemic hit? How has it affected you personally as well as, the work that you do? Celeste, why don't you start us off again?
Well, for me, I have 3 kids. So when the pandemic hit, my son had just arrived home from college from back east. And so he wasn't able to go back to school. And then the other 2 were basically kind of brought back into a virtual schoolroom at home. And then business wise, it started to boom because people were scared. They didn't want to go into a hospital setting. So I started getting a whole lot of phone calls looking into either prenatal care, postpartum care, home birth, or even just any of my other concierge services, like just going and doing their labs in the house. And so, yeah, it became even better for me, actually.
So how did you feel about it in terms of, in terms of protecting yourself and caring for yourself in a situation where everyone's being told to be socially distant and to avoid interaction with a lot of people? How did you manage that?
Well, because we pretty much work with low risk women who really are protective of themselves, their babies.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to give an informed consent about PPE. And basically, I do wear, a mask if the family requests, gloves always. I use a ton of sanitizer. I mean, I take probably everything from echinacea to elderberry and beyond. Every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
what about you, Angie? Thank you, Celeste.
Yeah, I think it affected me. The biggest thing that COVID affected was business starting. I got licensed in January, and then everything hit, offices closed down. So just getting my business up and running was a struggle because I couldn't get my business license. I couldn't get DBAs. Ordering my kit because I delayed that.
Wow.
Ordering everything was coming in late. And then as for protecting myself, besides masks, gloves, and sanitizer, I eat generally really healthy, move my body. So I think that's super important to just also staying healthy.
Absolutely. Chandler?
I think the hardest part for me was finding that transition between being with a mom in person all the time and then meeting her halfway. A lot of moms were like, hey, I don't really know that I want you to come into my home, but I know that I want a doula. So it was really important for me to find that middle ground. And so I did start doing a little bit of virtual visits and then only visiting mom when it was absolutely necessary, just to kind of decrease that risk of introducing anything to her. So on top of that, and kind of adjusting to that, I think I've just been protecting myself, wearing my gloves, and trying to stay inside as much as I can. I typically am only outside if I'm going to a birth or if I'm visiting a mom. So been staying close to home, eating right, and all the good things.
Sounds good. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, I agree with Chandler. At the beginning, it was like a weird limbo of like how to support my clients, especially because a lot of hospitals aren't allowing doulas right now, only one support person. So my business has kind of changed in a way to where I give more information to dad so he can support her better. So that's been fun for me also. In terms of taking care of myself, I take vitamins and I wear a mask and gloves, and I just pray that everyone is healthy.
Yes. So Jennifer, while you're there, tell us a little bit about your background, why and how you chose this path and the services that you provide.
First I became a certified lactation educator counselor. It was because of the very low rates in breastfeeding in Black women. I breastfed my first son for about a year. And I just felt like there wasn't a lot of support that looked like me. And then after the birth of my second son, my first son was born in the hospital and my second under midwifery care. And it was night and day on how I felt. I was so empowered during my birth, and it really changed how I felt about birth and everything. And I honestly didn't really want to become a doula. I was like, no. And there's a little voice in my head that was like, no, like, you need to tell women, you need to show women, because I wanted Black women to know that they can have an empowered birth. I'm not about pushing any type of birth in particular. I just want women, especially Black women, knowing the mortality rates, to have an empowered birth where they feel supported.
Thank you. Chandler, tell us about your path.
Yes, so I am currently in school, getting my master's as a clinical nurse leader. Just became a nurse in April, so that was really exciting.
Yay.
And so, yes, thank you. Along this journey, what I've really come to understand is that we can be great bedside nurses and we can understand the whole medical side of things. But it's so important for us to understand the emotional side of things. And in order for me to be a well-rounded nurse, I felt that I needed to dig a little deeper. For me, my passion has always been birthing, newborns and mamas. So I really wanted to see how I could become a little bit more in touch and a more well-rounded overall nurse. So I did take up doula work about a year ago. And I started working with Celeste, and it has been amazing. So I've learned so much. I did go ahead and get certified as a doula through Doula Trainings International. And it's just been great because I've had that mentorship the entire time. And I think it's really important as a new doula that you have that mentor that can kind of guide you through things. You don't know everything. So you have to look to the people who have been there and done everything before you. So it's very important to me that I have those mentors in my life.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference.
It does.
All right, mentor, you go next. Since you
I have such a long story.
Go ahead.
So I started off as a lactation consultant, have been a lactation consultant over 10 years, have worked in I'm still presently employed by 2 hospitals, one in Santa Monica and one in Arcadia. And I basically was, out in the hospital setting, but I also worked with the Native Americans on the different tribes, Morongo and Pachanga and San Manuel. And from there, I saw a lot of parents and moms breastfeeding, and especially in the hospital setting. And I saw something that really bothered me. The babies were really sleepy. They weren't really interested in breastfeeding. And so basically that led to my journey into midwifery. I was talking with another sister who's an advocate for women and breastfeeding and birthing. And she brought up midwifery, and I was like, what's a midwife? I've never heard of this. I mean, I had all 3 of my kids in a hospital setting, so I didn't know anything about it. And so I started really digging a little deeper, went into that format and found a school in San Diego called Nijoni, and started my journey, a 6-year journey of going to school in San Diego once a week, and then different midwives all over. And here I am in 2018. I got licensed a week before Christmas, or I passed my boards, I should say. Got my license in 2019, and here I am practicing, and I'm working with different women in the community. Angie, Chandler, and Jennifer have been really very supportive and have provided wonderful care to the women that some of my clients. So I'm just really excited, and a few other ladies that are not here, but that have helped me along the way. So yeah, it's like living my dream, my passion, actually. So,
absolutely. It's been beautiful to see. It's been beautiful to see it, what God has done in a year.
Yes, you've done this journey with me, so it's been one.
No. All right, Angie, tell us about your path and journey to midwifery.
I think it's kind of funny. I started undergrad wanting to be an RN, and I got into my junior year of undergrad, and the plan was to then do an accelerated program to become an RN and stay at my same university. I did an internship for 2 years at a hospital, and I was like, well, just under 2 years. I was like, this is not for me. I just saw like nurses crying in the break room, nurses getting belittled by the doctors. And you could just see like the nurse's passion was there, and then they'd be shut down, or they'd be like, no, the patient said this, and the doctor's like, no, like we're doing it my way. And I was just like, for me, it wasn't good. Like I really wanted to have my career uplift me, not end up at work crying miserable tears and things like that. So I told my parents, and they were like, heck no, you're going to nursing school. Like that's been your plan since you were little. Mom, baby, kids, like that's what you're going to do. It's like, no. So I got on Google like mom baby birth at a hospital, and I found doulas. So I did a doula internship in my junior year at a birth center. And then I was like, okay, midwives. Like, I didn't even realize the doula is, I mean, a doula can work in the hospital or out, but I didn't even realize midwives were necessarily a part of the equation when I started the internship. I just like got thrown in and was like, okay, cool. This is who I'm supporting. This is what I want to do. So after undergrad, I pursued midwifery school. And yeah, that's how I got here.
You know, I did, I mean, of course, I learned about and heard about midwives. You know, you hear about it more like from the slavery days. I would like the midwives to tell us a little bit about the historical context around midwifery. I had a doula who was my cousin, and the only way that I knew about, what a doula was because she was one. And when she found out I was pregnant, she offered to support me. So I had, the traditional doctor, but she was also there, supporting me, through my journey, and especially, the 3 days that I was induced because I was high risk. But I didn't even know that midwifery was an option, back in 2001 when I had Jada. So, why don't the midwives start off by telling us a little bit about the historical context around midwifery and why it's important today? And then we'll get into a discussion kind of about the difference between a midwife and a doula.
Well, traditionally, you want to start, Angie?
Go ahead.
Traditionally, midwife is with woman. That's really the definition. Traditionally, women were always with a woman during labor and birth, and even afterwards and beyond. And so during the slave time, I mean, there were these traditional lay women who happened to deliver the babies of the women on the plantations and in slavery. And they weren't formally trained or anything, but it was a tradition that was obviously passed down. I would say that they were very, very educated in the sense that they at least knew birth and labor very, very well. And, we call them grand midwives. They were granny midwives at that time, but now they're grand midwives. I watched this, what was it called? It's called All My Babies. And it was very transforming for me to see this beautiful Black woman who delivered like hundreds of babies in the South back in the 30s and 40s, during that time of, a lot of unrest. And so when we weren't allowed to go into hospitals or, treat fairly in those areas. And so I'm just excited to be on this journey again, just because of the people, our ancestors who have paved the way for us. So this is a really great time and season, especially with everything going on in the world.
Yes, absolutely. And so needed. Angie, do you want to chime in around?
Yeah, I think there's just so much with that. Like, even back to me being an undergrad, I only saw midwives discussed in other countries. Women in third world countries birth with a midwife. The education for midwives isn't all universal now. So that's just something that I want to throw into the mix when we, talk a little more. But I think the biggest thing is that midwives have always been in history. It started being as Black women. And then when we relearn about it in school today, we miss all of that. Like, we don't get the education, or we don't get to have as much joy or pride in that, because it's just like we got erased. And then when you think of the midwifery wave in general, I think most people are like, yeah, it's like white crunchy granola women who it started at the farm, and not that we were stripped of like our rights and things, and that midwives were always delivering better outcomes. OB care came in to play, and it was like, oh, you go to the doctor at the hospital because you're wealthy and you can do that. But the outcomes weren't even as good as the midwives. Like, but they wouldn't admit it. They wouldn't give them the recognition because it was mostly Black women being midwives. So I think that was something that's just important to recognize. And then it's also, I mean, it needs to be recognized. And it's a bummer that
Absolutely.
starting school, I didn't even realize I have more passion and more pride of being a midwife, just the more that I learn.
Thank you. So now I want to hear from the doulas. Tell us more about what you do and how it's different than being a midwife.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Celeste always says it so good, that we provide the intangibles. We're there to suffer with the woman when she's suffering, support her through her entire journey, because motherhood is a transformative journey. And we're here to help usher her through that journey, from start to finish, whether it's educating them or just supporting them through their labor and their pregnancy. And we support the entire family as well, partners and dads included, through this entire journey. I think doula means to serve, the woman who serves. So that's what we're here to do, is to serve women and families.
Thank you. Chandler?
Yes, Jennifer nailed it to the T. To serve mothers and to serve families. And I think it's so important that you do appreciate the aspect of the fact that we service the whole family. We are there from beginning to the end, and we don't want to leave anyone behind. So whether we are serving through education, whether we are serving through emotional support, whether we are serving through physical support, it's important to realize that we are that person you can lean on whenever it is you need something. We come with lots of resources and references, directions we can point you in. So Doula doesn't know everything. No one knows everything, but I think it's important to understand that we can guide you in the right direction and provide that birth that you envision. So.
Yes, my cousin Denise, I got to give a shout out to her. I mean, really helped me quite a bit as my doula. And I'm so grateful for her making it a positive experience for me, because there was a lot going on with me. So I can attest to how important it is. And I actually had a Black female doctor as well that ended up, she wasn't my doctor leading up to it, but because my doctor wasn't available, I was blessed to have Dr. Monica Christmas as my delivery doctor, as well as my cousin, Denise Bronson, as my doula. So I got the absolute best care. And I mean, it was quite a story. I won't get into all of it now, but I will just say it really makes a difference to have culturally competent and sensitive care, because if I was in any other setting without this kind of support, I probably would not have been able to have a natural birth. When I say natural, a vaginal birth, they would have, suggested that I have a C-section, which I did not want to do. And they were patient with me because, again, I was induced a month early over a 3-day period. And it was a wonderful experience. So I have so much respect for the work, that you do, and can attest to how important it is. And it's so important, especially because of the infant mortality rates in the Black community and with Black women. Let's talk a little bit about that and how your work, helps, to reduce, those negative statistics around the infant mortality rate in Black women in particular, and helping to reduce and eliminate healthcare disparities. Anyone can jump in.
I think that as midwives, we're just listening more. We're doing a more whole wellness. So the mom who may go into the OB office that gets 20-minute, if that, appointment is trying to explain X, Y, and Z is wrong, or I'm having these pains, and they get ignored. Oh, that's regular pregnancy. That's a regular pregnancy issue. And even more so, being a Black woman, their complaints and concerns are getting ignored. And I think being a midwife, that especially being a Black midwife, we're going to pay attention more and listen to those concerns and not dismiss them.
Yeah.
I also think something that we didn't talk about for the doulas is that not only do they support, they are advocating for the clients as well. So even if I'm as great as midwife as I can be, I might be in the birth like, well, I just want to manage it this way. And my intention might not be like a horrible intention. I have to just be like, oh, we've been at this birth for this long. Let's just do this one thing. And then the doula can step in like, wait, let's do a thought process about this. Like, is this what needs to be done? Yeah, just letting them really think it through, even more so in the hospital.
And so you really work collaboratively. I was wondering, how common is it for midwives and doulas to partner? And I still want to continue the conversation around disparities, but this is another important piece of it. I love the fact that most of you work together. And so, but I'm wondering, is this rare, or is this, more the norm? And do we collaborate more in the Black community than in others as it relates to midwives and doulas working together? So Les, why don't you answer that, and then others can chime in too.
Well, so yeah, we do collaborate, obviously. I mean, to me, I love for all of my clients I don't care whether it's their first time, their second time, third or fourth or fifth baby, it's best for them to have a doula, because our roles are different. So midwife's role obviously is we are providing care to medical care to that mother. We are going to be looking at their vital signs, everything from head to toe, to help bring forth a healthy mom and baby. We do look at the emotional, like Angie was talking about. We are spending a lot of time with the family, building a relationship, because it is a relationship-based. And I spend like an hour, maybe an hour and a half at some of my clients' houses. I mean, as some of the doulas know, I've become like family with them.
Yes, yes.
So it's hard to leave them, some of them, because I love them so much. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is our time. So, but I think that it also helps when you have that bond with with these families, that, it helps with their birth and their experience overall. And we do need to support and surround ourselves with doulas, other midwives that we can collaborate and work with. Even though Angie and I have both our own practices, we can collaborate as well as licensed midwives, and we should collaborate with a lot of different licensed midwives in the community.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer Chandler, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think collaboration is so essential, because you can learn from each other. So
yeah,
whether you're a doula, whether you're a midwife, peer groups are essential to understand, what went really well, where are your areas for improvement. So I think it's important that we do work together. You don't always see it, but I think it is a very important aspect that can be added to anyone's practice. And also understanding that doulas do work in the hospital as well. So sometimes they don't get the opportunity to work and collaborate with the healthcare professional as much as they would like, because they're in the hospital setting. And so from that end of things, I do think it's important that we play that role of the advocate for our clients, as Angie was saying, because this is how we can help them feel empowered and how we can bridge that gap between certain health disparities. So I think it's so important that you assess the environment that you're in, whether it be a home birth, a birth center birth, a hospital birth, and you figure out how you can serve your client, how you can work with the healthcare professionals to make it positive environment.
So Chandler, as an RN, how do you see the benefits of reducing healthcare disparities, being on both sides, with a midwife and a doula versus, traditional care?
I think it all falls back for me with education. So an RN is trained to educate their clients. They're trained to advocate for their clients. A doula is trained to do the exact same thing, but there's a huge difference between the education and the advocacy that is provided. Because an RN is, on the floor, you have 4 patients that you're working with. A doula, when you are with your mom, you are there to advocate for her and only her in that moment. So I think it's important to understand that a doula brings a certain closeness that you aren't always able to get in the hospital setting. And I think it's important that you have great RNs and great doulas. If you choose a hospital birth, or you have a great doula with you if you do choose a home birth or out of hospital birth. So there is a difference, but I think it does all fall back on how you are ready to show up for your client, how you choose to empower your client, and making them feel comfortable about making the right decisions for their healthcare, knowing that they aren't subject to any one decision, and that they do have the rights to, feel empowered and feel that they can control the direction of their healthcare. So I think it's important in both aspects to incorporate that into our care.
Thank you. Jennifer, let's hear from you about, the difference and any other benefits of, being, and serving as a doula to help eliminate healthcare disparities, as well as the importance of the collaboration amongst, Black women and Black women serving as doulas and midwives.
So first, it just goes back to advocating. With COVID, like I said, I'm not allowed in most hospitals, but I can. So I had a client recently. They went to the hospital and they were pushing for a C-section, and it was against their wishes. And from what they told me, I knew that there was no reason that they had to have a C-section. So I just armed the dad and the mom with the correct questions to ask their providers to see if they could try for vaginal birth. It ended up that they were able to give birth vaginally, just because they asked the right questions. If they had just went in there and just done what the doctor said, they would have had an outcome that they weren't really happy with. And that's important. People always say, yeah, it's important to have a healthy baby and mommy, but it's still important to have, if you can, to have the birth that you want. So I think that's still important, and you can collaborate. They didn't have to argue with the doctors. All they had to do was ask the correct questions to get the answers they wanted. And then collaborating.
Before you go on, Jennifer, what are some of those questions? Because we do want, moms to kind of walk away with, some empowerment around what they can share for those who are in the moment right now.
So one of the things I ask my clients is to ask the provider, like, well, can I think about it? Usually that'll tell you, like, if it's like a dire situation, if it's like really serious, because if you can't think about it, it's an emergency and something needs to happen. So give yourself time to think about it, talk it over with your partner. Ask your doctor, what other options are there? What other things have worked in the situation that you've seen? Can I try? I just ask them, what is your reasoning that I should have a C-section? They don't have an answer for you. You can go on to the next question. Okay, can we try for a vaginal birth, maybe for this many hours, and see how it works? And then they're more willing to,
those are great questions. Thank you. Okay, now you can go on to the next piece. But while we had that moment, I didn't want to lose it.
But collaborating, I mean, I've had so much fun because it's totally different working in a hospital, like Chandler said, because I don't always get to collaborate with the doctors or the nurses. Most of the time, the nurses are great, and I have like a great time, and they find out their client has a doula and they're excited because I'm there to help. I'm there to help you and the client to make sure this goes smoothly. But I've gotten to work with both Chandler and Celeste during birth, and it's so refreshing to collaborate with other women, especially Black women with common principles, to just have a mom birth safely and supported. And it's been just really, really amazing.
Great. So we've talked, and you represent a wide variety of career options, within the field. Just, here with us this morning. What advice or tips would you give to anyone aspiring to work in the field? And Angie, why don't you go? And then we'll go around.
I think for me specifically, doing the midwifery path, I think you need to build a support system. If you don't have one, lean into your cohort, the other ladies that are in school with you. I think that you can't okay, so what I'm about to say might be like the taboo topic, and people don't always want to talk about it.
You want to lay it all out on the table. Go ahead.
Senior midwives will haze you. You will get put in positions. Well, you will get put in positions where they're asking way more of you than they should, and it's like we're a free worker. So I think that you need to set your boundaries and have that laid out initially in the start of you starting a preceptorship, and just be able to have evaluations and discuss what is the next step. Why do other people get a break in a work field before 24 hours, but you want me to stay awake in a birth for 72 hours? Talking about the safety boundaries. And then another one that's easier said than done would be looking for scholarships, just because it gets hard to work and be on call 24/7. In school, you're really trying to knock out all your clinical numbers. So if you're paying tuition out of pocket and you're trying to hold a full-time job, that's just not going to happen. And if you did make it happen, you're some kind of magical person. A serious props to you, because I had to let go of hours and ultimately not work during part of school.
So are there specific sources that you can reference for students for the scholarships specifically in this field? Are there sites specific to this?
I think that's what's lacking. I would say.
Oh, that's what's lacking.
I would say no, because licensed midwifery is kind of rebuilding up and getting its footing and acknowledgement and stuff. So you can apply to a health field scholarship, but they're like, am I going to give it to this licensed midwife or to this med student? It goes to the med student. They're going to get the scholarship over you. There is a new scholarship through the school that me and Celeste went to for Black and students of color to become midwives. So that is a resource if you do choose to go to Najoni. There is a new scholarship, which is amazing. But
can you spell the name of the school? Because that's an uncommon name.
Yeah, it's NIZHONI, Institute of Midwifery.
Okay, thank you. Celeste, do you want to follow up?
Yeah. First and
tips
foremost,
and advice.
I didn't get to say a lot of things that I really want to say. Number one, I want to say that there's not that many African-American Black midwives. We are very small in number, licensed midwives as well as certified nurse midwives. So we need more of us in this, because there's a lot of Black women who need our services. Some, those who are coming out of the hospital making their decisions like, hey, I want this because I don't want to go into a place that is normally known for systemic racism in there. They have not yet even began at the beginning of this year. Governor Newsom, I was on Spectrum News. Governor Newsom was already putting into play about getting all of the individuals in the OBGYN and also in the hospitals, the nurses, in labor and delivery and in postpartum, having them trained in implicit bias, having them have some type of training. That has not taken place since COVID. So now we've got fear, you know, because we've got COVID. So it's a whole lot of other stuff now that is impounding on what is happening in those realms. I'm not saying that everybody's bad, but there are people who just have their biases, and you go in there as a Black woman, your chances kind of rise a little higher. So I'm sorry, I'm getting on my platform on this because it's
go ahead.
very personal and passionate for me to explain that we definitely need to seek, like you said, culturally, you know,
Competent.
competent women who can help you. Midwives are here to help reduce the labor inductions. We're here to reduce rates in episiotomies, cesarean sections, which are not necessary. We just heard of a lady who just passed away after having a cesarean section. Epidural, we reduce these risks, and it's really important. Also, we reduce the risk for babies for resuscitation, infant infection rates, we do delayed cord clamping. I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on, but I just wanted just to just say that those are one of the things that I'm passionate about. But we do need more midwives in the field because we can't do it all by ourselves. I'm getting so many calls from women that are Black women, and I can't help every single person, but if we have more midwives, I can, here you go, Angie, here you go, you know, to another sister midwife and get these women the care that they need, which to me is very important. So I just wanted to put that out there.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's important. This is what this is for. This is exactly what this is for. So thank you. Appreciate that passion. And that's why you're here. That's exactly why you're here.
We know that there is, you know, we've just seen it in our world of racism. And I just want to make sure we understand that. We know that this is a huge ordeal we're still dealing with. We're not done yet completely. And Angie's right. There is a lot of things that happen when you're trying to get this. I know friends of mine personally, a doula I'm thinking of, and she was not able to complete her midwifery training because of finances, because of the impact that it would take her out of her home where she would not be able to be employed. I did it as a single mom. I still look back and I'm like, this was a God job. This was not something, I was working and then going through some health issues with my thyroid. And I don't know how I made it through, but I had, you know, just family and friends who prayed over me and I got through this. But it was very difficult. I mean, I had to decrease my, you know, hours at work. I had, like I said, family and friends who really pitched in and gave me money. You know, I mean, I have to pay back all of these people, but most of them are like, you know what, it was a donation. We're just glad that you're doing what you're called to do. So if you have to find funding, like Angie was saying, Najoni does have a actual scholarship that they're using because of that. I mean, I would say do GoFundMe, do whatever you can to get the finances because it is kind of costly and there is a time period, you know, during internship or preceptorship where you're not able to work full time because you are actually on call and have to go in and work with families and stuff. So yeah, it is challenging.
No, thank you.
I think it's one of the biggest challenges for Black women, and they know it. I think, you know, there's the California Association of Licensed Midwives. I believe they're trying to come up with ideas and ways to bridge this gap for Black women.
Thank you. Chandler?
Yes. I have to start off by just saying, if you are thinking about becoming a midwife, if you are thinking about becoming a doula, please do it. We are here to support you, and we need you. We need you. Moms need you. Families need you. So I just have to start off by saying that because a lot of people are very timid about entering this world of things, this type of birth work. And it's so rewarding. And it's such a good feeling to be able to give all that you can to a family, to a mom, and see the positive outcomes that come from it. Another tip that I would love to give is it is very important that as a doula, I can't speak for a midwife, but as a doula, self-care is essential. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of anyone else. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed with the work that you're putting in, lean on those around you. So that's why I did point out a little bit earlier in our talk the importance of having that peer group, having that mentor that you can go to and speak to about anything that you need to talk about, whether it be personal or your actual work. And being able to just reflect on each birth. I think it's so important that you go back to the birthing experience. Once you're able to kind of get the rest that you need, reflect, because this is how you learn, this is how you improve. And so we have to take time for those little moments and appreciate them. And on the lines of what Angie was saying in regards to scholarships and things like that, I would have to say, as a doula, don't be afraid to take on a mom who may need a little bit more support financially. I think it's so important to not shy away from those moms, because those are the moms that need it the most. And you have to be willing to kind of go out on a limb with them and just work it out and see how things go. There is a doula scholarship out right now. I would say it's more of a grant that Frontline Doulas is doing. And I thought it was so awesome. And it's for African-American doulas who are pairing with their clients, African-American clients, and they have certain due dates, but you sign up. The application opens on the 15th of this month. So you go and you sign up and hope for a grant that you can work with a mom, and she doesn't have to come out of pocket, but there is that grant for you to have reimbursement. So I think it's important to, stay up to date, find these things that are out there. They're out there. But
absolutely.
It's to kind of do that work.
Also,
and on that note,
they also
I was just going to, you're going to go ahead, Celeste.
An Empire Health Program grant. Jennifer, you can kind of talk about that, because I know you know that one.
And I was going to say, yes, all of you chime in and talk about resources available, and we'll shift back.
Yeah, I love everything Chandler said about mentorship and finding your village, because if I didn't have people to bounce ideas off of or debrief from a birth, it's so important. And self-care on top of it. We all have lives and we pour so much into these families. So it's really, really important to take care of ourselves. Because if you don't take care of yourselves, you can't give your clients your all. But yeah, Frontline is an amazing program. I had someone reach out to me about it yesterday, actually, Chandler. But there's also IHP that Angie is a part of also. They have a doula program. So if you have IHP direct insurance, you can get a doula at no cost to you. You just go online at do you know the website, Angie? RCHF. I think it's RCHF/doula.
You know what? You can put it in the chat afterwards.
I don't know exactly.
Make sure.
But you can get a doula at no cost to you. So that's been a really great opportunity for me to, I get to serve these moms who normally wouldn't be able to afford a doula, maybe not even knew what a doula was before. And those clients have been so rewarding for me because I get to really pour into them because I know they need it and they need it the most. So that's been really amazing.
Actually, I meant you're so used to saying chat from Zoom. Put it in the comments so that the public can see, the viewers can see. So after the show, you can definitely do that, along with how they can continue to stay in touch with you. Although we'll close with that. Any other resources you ladies want to share that you can think of off the top of your head? And if not, again, we can after the show, and it will continue to be replayed and watch parties and all of that. So make sure that any other resources that you want to reference, you can put in the comments afterwards. Okay, so as it's amazing how quickly the time goes. As we're winding down, I would like, as you're saying your closing comments, I'd like you to incorporate what do you believe, from your vantage point, needs to change in order to reduce and eliminate healthcare disparities, for Black women. It could be specifically to this field, or even more broadly, or you can, do both if you like. And then just, whatever words of wisdom you want to close out with, we'll take you, one by one, and that'll actually take us to the end. Having worked at the American Hospital Association's Institute for Diversity and Health Management in the leadership within our internal nonprofit, as well as the AHA, learned just how critical the fight is, to work against, healthcare disparities. So that's why this is also very important to me. So I tell you what, Jennifer, why don't you start? We'll go to Chandler, Angelica, and then we'll close with Celeste.
I just think people need to start listening to Black women during our birth, doing postpartum, everything, because they're not listening in the hospitals. And then even more, like, Black women started midwifery. So looking to Black midwives when they're have these conversations because they have the answers. Black women have always been the ones who have cared about these disparities the most, and we're going to be the ones to help fix it. So people just need to listen to Black women. And then honestly, like, piggybacking off of what Chandler said earlier, if you feel that call in any part of this, midwifery or doula work or lactation, just do it, because there needs to be more women.
Yes, thank you. Chandler?
Completely agree. I would have to say, from a broader scope of things, as a healthcare worker working for many underserved communities, I think it's important that we take it upon ourselves to educate ourselves on different policy making ideas. A lot of these policies that are in place in healthcare in the United States, in our local hospitals, they aren't catered towards Black women. So we need to make sure that we're staying educated on the ways in which we can help our moms and help our Black mothers focus on having policies that cater to them as well, and not just the everyday mom. So I think that's important, that we do educate ourselves continuously. Everything's always changing in terms of policies and how we can give back to our community. So I think it's important that we just stay up to date on that. That definitely needs to
very important
change. Yeah, we need to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, and kind of allowing ourselves to be placed in this position where we can ask these questions that are considered taboo or uncomfortable for someone to ask, so that we can help bridge this gap between the different health disparities.
Chandler, as you brought up policy, which is very, very important, especially around ensuring that we impact social change and systemic change. Is there any policy initiative that the viewers can get behind right now to support that you're aware of?
Yeah, I would say, obviously, I don't have the policy number in my head right now.
Right. We can put it in the comments.
Right. But there are some initiatives going around with, like, healthy eating at hospitals. And I think it's so important that we incorporate healthy diets in our hospital setting, because we oftentimes, you go to your room and it's like, what do you want to eat? And it's not appropriate for, a birthing mom, or it's not supportive of, the healthy diet that she needs after just having a baby. So I think it's important that we have these diets. Celeste talks a lot with her clients about the brewer's diet. We need to incorporate this into our education. And we need people to understand that healthy eating, healthy lifestyles are so important when, you are caring for yourself and caring for your baby.
Thank you. Yes, if you can follow up and put, any
I
of those
will.
policy things that others and all of you, that would be great. All right, Angie.
Yeah, so many things. Real quick to piggyback off Chandler is that you could also call your local like Congress representative just to request like more access to midwifery care, not taking away midwifery care, calling your insurance. A lot of the times we're trying to deal with billing and getting our clients reimbursement, and they're like, well, you're the provider, we don't care what you're saying. The client's family, everyone who has insurance needs to call the insurance and say we need more access to these things, because some moms aren't getting the care that they deserve or able to seek out midwifery care because licensed midwives aren't fully covered under insurance. Even some medical loans that offer 0% interest rates, those companies are covering plastic surgery and not midwifery care. So even looking those and calling about that. It's a task to call, but it's our right to have these services and not be a financial thing that we can't do for Black women. Also,
and that's an excellent point. Thank you for making that.
Yeah, education is so important. But another thing to just recognize is that Black women are dying 3 to 4 times more than white women, regardless of socioeconomic status and regardless of education. So regardless of where you're birthing, I think it's super important to have a doula and who's super up on policies and asking the right questions, someone that's not afraid to nag, because maybe that mom's complaining about something and she's a doctor herself or something, and they're like, you don't know, you're a Black lady that X, Y, and Z. And that one doctor's implicit bias kills someone. Like 2 healthy moms have died recently just from being ignored, just from their concerns being ignored. I'm trying to think because I know you asked a different question and I just...
Any closing comments of any words of wisdom that you want to share?
Okay, my last thing is that I really think that ask questions and reach out. Like maybe there is a financial thing that's going on. People are willing to work with you. People do have the resources. So even if you, like moms having babies or wanting to have babies, wanting well woman care with someone who looks like you, just ask the questions and don't be afraid to ask. And the worst thing is that maybe I say no and Celeste says yes, or I don't have a resource, so I pass you on to someone else who has the resource for you. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Celeste.
Good stuff, Angie. Good stuff, Chandler. Good stuff, Jennifer. I want to close out. Dr. Neil Shaw is an OB that kind of went all over the place. He works in Boston. He wrote, having a baby is a moment of identity and formation. As a mother, people always remember it. We remember the day we gave birth, just like you were talking about, Kelly.
Yes.
You remember that day you brought your daughter into the world. So survival is the floor of what women deserve in 2020. Okay, we should be aiming for the ceiling, not just status quo. We should be aiming way there. So traditionally, we know that we started off with midwifery care. I want to just urge my Black women, Black partners, Black aunties, grandmas, sisters, everybody in that field. We need to surround ourselves with a birth team like that you are feeling comfortable with, that you trust, that believes in you, that gets you and sees you as an individual. We believe that in midwifery care. We believe in individualized care plans. You're not just a checkbox. You're not just I just did that and we're just checking it off. You know, we do look at you as an individual. And I just want to just leave it at that, because I think that if we see that and more people are more, willing to say, hey, there's a provider who sees me as who I am, then we can open up the, to start talking about how we can make some changes in some of these areas.
Yay, that was awesome. You ladies are awesome. You make me want to have a baby. I literally just gave up the notion about a year or two ago. So I'll just live vicariously through you, and I'll try to come and support in some way. Maybe, who knows? I may see a career change. You're very inspiring. I need more babies in my life right now. Like, it's time for grandbaby. Well, not really through my daughter, but I'm at that age. All my friends are having grandbabies, and I'm a little envious of not having any babies around. So yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah. So that next generation, my friends' children's grandchildren, will have to get it that way. But why don't you share with everyone real quickly how to follow you on social media, and then definitely put websites and things like that in the chat, in the comments, so that everyone can see afterwards. So Jennifer, how can people follow you? And we'll just do Jennifer, Chandler, Angie, and Celeste.
Sorry, I was cutting out. You said, how can they follow me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so on Instagram, just Jennifer_D_Evans. And then on Facebook, just Jennifer Evans.
Great, thank you.
And
Chandler?
You can find me at thebumpculture.com or on Instagram at thebumpculture.com. And that's BUMP culture.
Great.
You can find me at rowanmidwifery.com and on Instagram at midwife_Ang, A-N-G.
And you can find me at ivymidwife.com, and on Instagram it's at midwifecellivy. And there you go.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to continue this conversation, and I really appreciate you launching us in our healthcare series and discussions about things that are important to our community as it relates to our health, overall health and wellness. This was amazing. I look forward to staying connected and wish you all the best, and all the moms and families that you serve.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, ladies. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. See ya. Wow. What an enlightening education we received this morning. Thank you so much, ladies. As we closed our 22nd segment of Impact Media Presents Birthing While Black, we're just so grateful for Celeste, Jennifer, Angie, and Chandler for making it, a very impactful conversation. So next week, tune in. Make sure you continue to follow the Positive Impact Campaign page, like our page, so that you can get all the updates around what's coming up next, the next topics, and the next dates and times, because we're moving around to adjust to our speakers' availability. We're trying this, it's new in July. And so we thank you for your continued support, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care and have a great week.